What is up, fellow nerds, and welcome back to the Dapper Snapper Gaming channel, and welcome back to our monthly State of the Meta address. Now, if you haven't seen one of these before, this is going to be our analysis of last month's usage statistics and all of that good stuff in the OU tier, and then we're going to be using that to look forward and to speculate about where the metagame is going this generation, why it's doing that based on April, and you know what kind of tier shifts have been going on, and what's May going to be for competitive. So if you are into this kind of video, make sure to leave a like on this video and make sure to comment down below letting me know what kind of changes you expected, what changes you think were maybe not deserved, or anything like that. Just let me know your thoughts in the comments, and of course, if you are new, make sure to subscribe for more videos. So normally we have a fancy little graphic that looks like this, and this is last month's graphic, and it helps us to have a cohesive looking way of seeing everything that's going on. But this month we don't have that, unfortunately. I waited about as long as I possibly could before recording this and just never got one. So unfortunately we're gonna have to roll without it this month, but that's totally okay. But we are going to compare this month to last month. Now, you know, last month we had our top three of Clefable, Corviknight, Dragapult. That has not changed. Our Corviknight and Dragapult have dropped a little bit in usage, and Clefable has gone up. But ultimately, you know, I think the places are what really matters. Now, as far as talking about all of them and what make them so good, we have talked about these three mons extensively on the channel, and especially in our Taking Them Down series. If you haven't seen that, the playlist for that will be up in the iCard above. Basically what that series is we talk about team building strategies and how to build teams around these guys if your team is struggling. So make sure to check that out. We have covered all three of these. Now, number 4, Seismitoad, is not really a shock. It has been in OU since the beginning, and it's just made its rounds back up to number 4. I believe it was number 4 a couple of months ago. It was 11 last month, and it's back up. We've got Zeraora at 5, down from 4. I mean, who cares? One spot. But yeah, it's always a great mon. It's super fast, hits really hard, great typing, great ability. It's a cool mon. Excadrill, duh, we've talked about it extensively on the channel. Ferrothorn. Ferrothorn's, of course, a really bulky boy. It's got all of the hazards. It takes hits for days. Really cool stuff. Dracovish. Seismitoad is there for Dracovish. It basically comes in and just clicks the Strong Jaw boosted Vicious Rend, and everything just kind of drops. So that's why we have Seismitoad around, just to deal with that. Aegislash. We've talked about Aegislash a lot because it's so strong, takes hits really well, and then deals everything right back 3 times as hard. It's so good. Rotom Heat, that's there for Corviknight. Basically, it also is decently fast with a Scarf, and it gets Volt Switch, it gets T-Bolt, it can do a lot of different things. Hydreigon, really good Scarfer, really good Nasty Plot user, really cool mon. Bisharp, it likes to have its stats dropped, right? It likes Intimidate, it likes Defog, it likes anything like that drops a stat, and so that way it just gets stronger with its Defiant ability. It also gets Swords Dance, and you know, having that priority Sucker Punch to hit all of these ghosty boys, yeah, it's a good mon. Hippowdon, of course, being the primary sand setter in this generation. It's beating out Tyranitar. Now, Tyranitar was saved. Don't get me wrong, Tyranitar was saved because of Pokeaim's efforts to keep it up in this tier, and it did work. So Tyranitar did not drop, but Hippowdon is still the better sand setter. It just deals with all of the physical attackers a lot better. It uses rocks a lot. It gets recovery, which is good. It serves a better purpose than Tyranitar does this gen. Tyranitar typically is a little bit more offensive, whereas Hippowdon is the physically defensive wall, which is typically what is needed. Toxapex is better than ever this generation, and we talked about that a lot in its competitive decks episode, of course. And yeah, it's just really good. It takes hits for days on the physical side and the special side, honestly, but physical side is its stronger side, and it's just fantastic because everything's physical this gen, and it's not really weak to much, so it's a good mon. Conkeldurr, it can be Guts, it can be Assault Vest, it can run the Iron Fist ability to help its Mach Punch, so it gets priority. Really cool, versatile mon. Kyurem, now that it gets freeze dry, it's so good, and we've talked about it a lot on the channel as well, but one move is all it needed to be really, really good. Let's see, Mandibuzz has been good since release. It's great. Melmetal got banned. Cinderace, it's versatile, right? It hits hard. You can run a choice band. You could run heavy duty boots on it, and you can swap hazards around. You can swap screens to your side. Anything you want to do, really cool. Togekiss is, of course, a strong boy because it can flinch you to death. It has Roost for recovery. It was a lot better with Dynamax, you know, being able to boost speed, but you know, it's not as good with Dynamax. That's why it started to drop down in the 9% range, but it's still a very good mon. Don't get me wrong. Cloister, of course, the shell smasher in this generation, and it hits everything really hard with Icicle Spear and Rock Blast, and then of course priority with Ice Shard. Mew can do anything, and my thing is, like, you see Mew and you have Jirachi down at 29, and the reason these two mons are so good is because, you know, you see a Corviknight, right, in Team Preview. You see a Dragapult in Team Preview, and you pretty much know what's going to happen, right? They're going to be, Corviknight's going to be really defensive, and yes, it could run Bulk Up, it can run, you know, it has a multitude of sets. Dragapult could be physical or special, whatever, but you know that it's going to be a fast offensive threat, Dragapult is, and Corviknight's going to be a slow, bulkier threat. Mew could be anything, and Jirachi can be anything. They're both so versatile in their stats, being all 100, and they have such large move pools. They can do anything they want. They can be physical, they can be special, they can be offensive, they can be defensive, and they can just do a lot of different things. And so that's why I think Mew is such a good threat, because it can do so many things really well. Gengar is an amazing Scarfer this generation. It also does Nasty Plot really well because it is already so naturally fast. Tyranitar we already talked about. It's an offensive sand setter, which just isn't as good as Hippowdon. It's still good though, but it's just not as good. And then Terrakion, basically the Tyranitar killer, it can come in and just knock it out with a close combat. It also gets the priority quick attack if it needs it. It gets Swords Dance, so you could run that with a Life Orb. You can run Choice Band. It does a lot of things really well. Pelipper sets up Rain. Rain is great this generation, which is cool. Hatterene is going to be your typical Trick Room user, so it can set up Trick Room, and then it's basically slower than everything and just knocks it all out because it's really strong and really bulky. It's fine. Talked about Jirachi Hawlucha. It's got Unburden. It hits really hard already. It can run Sword Stance. It works well in terrain. It's a great mon. I absolutely love it. Mimikyu, the ability to be able to take a hit before anything ever happens is fantastic, and it allows it to pick off a lot of threats. So you bring it in and you basically already have a sub up. It's amazing. It's fantastic. Grimmsnarl, of course, can set screens. It's typically what it does, but it also can be offensive. You know, it can run something a little bit stronger and run the Sucker Punch, anything like that. We did use an offensive Grimmsnarl in our Meme GC episode yesterday, so if you haven't seen that, make sure to check it out. That was a really fun one. We actually used a Pickpocket one, and it was pretty fun instead of the Prankster. And then, of course, Keldeo. Now, I think Keldeo is a little bit overrated, and the biggest reason is its limited move pool. Now, it does have really great stats. Don't get me wrong, its stats are fantastic, but it only gets Stab, pretty much. Like, that's all it gets. So you're every time you see a Keldeo, it's either going to be Specs or Scarf, pretty much. It could be Sub Calm Mind, but those aren't super common this generation. I don't think they're nearly as good this gen. And so you're going to get Hydro Pump, Scald, Secret Sword, and then either Icy Wind or Toxic. That's pretty much it. That's what they do. That's the only thing that they do. And so it's unfortunate, but you know, it is what it is. It stuck around, and that is actually all of our tier this month. So with that, Ditto and Dugtrio have dropped down to UU. Ditto, I've been saying for a long time, Ditto was going to make its way down to UU eventually, since Dynamax got banned. It took it a little longer than I thought, but Ditto really shone because it was a Dynamax killer. As soon as you Dynamax, you are gaining stats. Ditto then comes in, copies the current stats, then can Dynamax and gain more stats. That's what made Ditto so good, but you know, now that we don't have that, it's not going to be nearly as good. You know, it can still beat setup sweepers, which is cool, but it's just not as good because it's not as common for something to just set up right in the middle of a match. We've got Dugtrio because Arena Trap was banned, and I said this, as soon as Arena Trap gets suspect tested and banned, Dugtrio would start to drop, and it did pretty much immediately, so that was really good. Barbaracle, Pangoro, and Escavalier move up to the UU tier, which is pretty cool. My favorite, personally, is going to be Pangoro. I think it's a really cool mon. I've never thought it's particularly strong just because it is so slow, but as far as its power and its move pool, it's a good mon. I really like Pangoro. I like its design. The big tough panda bear is really awesome. Escavalier I also really like just because of its bulk factor, and then it hits back really hard with Mega Horn. Really cool mon. Now, these next ones, we're starting to get into these lower tiers. I typically play OU, but I use these lower mons as well, so I don't keep up necessarily with their meta games, but I do know how all of these mons work. So what are the big ones for me, right? I think Avalugg, Braviary, Duraludon, and Inteleon are our big ones. I don't think the other ones are as important. Avalugg has been a staple of UU since it dropped, and it gets the sturdy ability now that Home is out to help it on that special side, but it still couldn't save it, and it still dropped down to RU, which is unfortunate. It does get the rapid spin, and it's a really annoying physical wall, so I do hope to use it sometime in the near future on the channel, so be watching out for that. Braviary is a really good Scarfer, I think, in order to knock out a lot of key threats. It gets fighting type coverage, it gets flying type coverage, and of course normal type coverage. So it's a good mon. I really like Braviary. I think it's good. Duraludon, we just used it this past Wi-Fi Wednesday. If you haven't seen that match, make sure to check it out. We fire off some steel beams, and by some I mean one, into a Mew, and it was fantastic. So make sure you check that out. And then Inteleon is interesting because I've never really thought that Inteleon was all that great. It's fast, it hits okay. It's okay as far as power goes, but I think it's a little underwhelming. It can set screens, which is cool, but yeah, I think it's just gonna keep. I think RU is probably where it'll stop. I don't think it'll go quite down to NU, but I think RU is a decent place for it. Let's see, Kingler. I'm not that surprised about that. Corsola, Alolan Dougie, Farfetch'd, Flapple, Lanoon, Meltan. Yeah, all of these, no shock there. Absolutely no surprise that all of these dropped. They all just, they're bad. They're all really bad. Let's see, all of these rising back up. I think Liepard is cool now that Liepard has its prankster ability back. I really love that it is starting to come back up. The Appleton dropping down to PU. I wish Appleton was better because I just love its design, but unfortunately it's just not good. It just doesn't cover its weaknesses well. Dubwool, I really didn't think Dubwool would get down to PU. I thought it would stay in NU at minimum, but I guess people just don't like it. The thing is, it walls so many physical threats, and of course, physical threats are the biggest problem right now. That weakness to fire is a thing, but typically, it deals with ghosts, right? Because it deals with ghosts kind of because it is a normal type, so ghosts can't touch it, but it also then can't touch them back. We talked about this in our competitive deck series. We covered Dubwool this past week, and I showed you just how limited his move pool is. So, it actually can't do anything back to ghosts, so that is unfortunate. Phalanx, the goons just keep dropping, even though I love them so much. And Mr. Rhyme, one of my favorite mons from this generation, it just can't cut the mustard, unfortunately. He's a great dancer, but just not a great competitive mon. Gothitelle coming up to PU from ZU. Now, I didn't even know that ZU was official yet, or at all. Just ZU is not a tier that I've ever really played. But Gothitelle Rising is interesting now that trapping is banned. So, it is what it is. We'll have to see. We'll have to see where that goes. I'm not really sure what's going to happen with that. Meowstic is rising, of course, because of Prankster, and so it can do a lot of different things, especially with screens. And then I love how Vibrava and Trapinch have just kind of like switched around. Vibrava is now up in PU, and then Trapinch is down in ZU. And then, of course, Thievul being down in ZU because it is like the worst mon made. So yeah, that is going to be all of our changes for this month. Now, where do I think that the meta is going? Now, I think the UU meta is really interesting because they just banned Venusaur, right? So I think that's going to bring some Sun up to OU because Torkoal dropped and Darmanitan dropped, right? And if you look right here, let's see, where is that? Venusaur and Darmanitan are right next to each other with almost the same amount of usage. So I wouldn't, you know, I feel like it's pretty fair to say, and then Torkoal's right here. I feel like it's pretty fair to say that they are usually on the same team. And so with Venusaur being banned to BL, you know, that's going to make it to where it has to be used in OU. So I think we're going to start seeing a lot more Sun again in OU, even though all those mons are in UU. So I would expect a lot more Sun. That is my big forecast, I guess. And we might see a drop back down with Ferrothorn. The reason Ferrothorn is so high this time around is because, you know, Sun isn't as prevalent as it was before. It's definitely prevalent. It's definitely around, but it's not as prevalent as it was. And so there's not as many, you know, fire type threats coming around. You know, you do have Rotom Heat, which is pretty prevalent, but besides that, there's not a ton of fire type coverage that can really do a ton to this. So yeah, I think we'll start to see a drop in Ferrothorn and a rise in Sun teams. So, but that's my prediction. So make sure to leave your predictions down in the comments below. Make sure to leave a like on the video as well, and make sure to subscribe. Now, tomorrow we are going to have a different kind of video for sure. Tomorrow's video is going to be a channel update. I've never done one of those before, so it's going to be definitely very different for me, but I really hope that you guys will come out and see it. We do have the best subscriber count right now on the channel, and our next goal is going to be 420. That is our pre-channel update. Our new goal is 420, so make sure to go out and share these videos and all of the videos on the channel with your friends so that we can make that goal. So anyway, I will see you tomorrow for our channel update, and I hope you guys have an amazing day. Bye-bye.